Surprised my cheating wife with divorce papers at her secret. Hotel Getaway affair. My name is Ethan, and I used to believe in fairy tales. Not the kind with dragons or castles, just the ones where two people fall in love, build a life, and grow old together. I met my wife Rachel in college. She was bold, smart, hilarious, everything I wasn't. I was quiet, calculated, a little too into computers and not enough into parties. But she loved that about me. Or at least she used to. We were married for 8 years. We had a cozy house, a dog named Milo, and plans to start a family. On the outside, we were that couple. The one you look at and say, they've got it figured out. But fairy tales lie. Because behind the curated Instagram posts and the dinner parties with friends, Rachel was hiding something. It started small. A little more time on her phone. More nights out with the girls. Less interest in me. At first I chalked it up to stress. Her job in marketing had gotten intense. I tried to be supportive. I'd cook dinner, give her space, run baths, but the space only grew. I remember the night everything snapped into place. It was late, almost midnight, and Rachel was working late at the office. I was scrolling through Reddit, ironically reading a story about someone catching their partner cheating. That's when I heard it. Milo scratching at the front door. He only did that when someone had just come in. I walked downstairs, and there she was standing in the hallway, kicking off her heels, startled to see me. "Didn't you say you were at the office?" I asked. She froze. I just got back. Stopped by to pick up a file. "You went to the office in heels and a dress?" I asked. Her makeup was still perfect. Too perfect for someone supposedly dealing with spreadsheets. She blinked. "Yeah, there was a client dinner." I nodded slowly, but something inside me broke not just suspicion, but certainty. I didn't say anything more that night. I didn't confront her. I went upstairs, lay in bed, and stared at the ceiling. That's when I decided I wouldn't accuse her. I'd gather evidence. I wanted the truth undeniable, raw, and real. I'm an IT consultant, surveillance, security, tracking. That's my bread and butter. The next day, I bought a GPS tracker, discreet, magnetic, perfect for the underside of her car. I installed a keylogger on her laptop. I backed up her texts using software that silently mirrored her messages to my device. And then I waited. The truth unraveled faster than I expected. There were hundreds of messages. A guy named M, always just an initial. They'd been talking for months, flirting, sexting, sharing hotel bookings. I watched in disbelief as I saw screenshots of her calling me boring, predictable, a placeholder. I read her tell him, "He's too nice. That's the problem. I need someone who makes me feel alive." And made her feel alive. I made her feel secure. The worst part? I recognized the hotel they kept referencing. It was a boutique place downtown, one I'd taken her to on our anniversary the year before. She was planning a girls' weekend there again next Friday. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, seething, hurting, planning. Because if Rachel wanted a thrill, wanted passion and chaos, I'd give it to her. Just not in the way she expected. I called my friend Marcus. He's a lawyer. I asked him to prepare divorce papers with all the evidence attached. I'd already taken screenshots, compiled chat logs, GPS history, all timestamped and legal. Rachel had no prenup protection. Our house was in my name, so was the business. She'd walked into the marriage with charm, and I'd walked in with assets. Now, she'd walk out with nothing but regret. The plan was simple. Friday night, she'd check into the hotel thinking she was meeting her lover, but I'd be there first. Friday came faster than I thought. Rachel kissed me goodbye that morning, dressed casually, suitcase in hand, her face glowing like a teenager sneaking out to meet her high school boyfriend. "Have fun with the girls," I said, keeping my voice smooth. She smiled and replied, "We're probably just going to drink wine and complain about men." I nodded, watching her walk out the door like she hadn't just shattered 8 years of my life into a million pieces. As soon as her car disappeared down the street, I moved fast. Everything had already been prepared. The divorce papers neatly tucked in a black envelope, a backup hard drive of all her messages ready to go, the hotel reservation under my name that I had intercepted and duplicated. I made sure her room was still booked, room 214, and called ahead to inform the front desk that I'd be checking in early. Rachel and her mystery man weren't due until around 8 p.m. I had hours. I packed light, just essentials, plus a GoPro I'd mounted in a custom case disguised as an alarm clock. I'd already installed a small hidden mic under the table in the hotel suite. She wasn't just going to get caught, she was going to get caught on record. By 5 p.m., I was checked into room 214. I ordered food, opened the wine she had prepaid for, how thoughtful, and waited. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It was still, ice cold, resigned. She had made her choices. I was about to give her consequences. At 7:52 p.m., I heard voices outside the door. Her voice, laughter, and then a man's voice, deep, confident, a little smug. The keycard clicked. I stepped around the corner into the main suite area right as the door opened. Rachel entered first. She was mid-sentence, laughing, eyes locked on her lover, who I could now see clearly. Tall, mid-30s, athletic build, clean-shaven, charcoal blazer. And not just some random fling. My coworker, Matt. We'd met on a project 2 years ago and stayed in touch. He'd been to our house, had beers on my porch, met my dog. The betrayal doubled in an instant. Rachel shrieked when she saw me. Ethan, what the asterisk CK are you doing here? Matt froze behind her, eyes wide. Nice room, I said coolly, standing with the envelope in my hand. Planning to play house? Rachel turned red. You're insane. How did you... I held up my phone and pressed play on a voice recording. Rachel, giggling. You know, if Ethan ever found out, I'd just lie again. He's so trusting. He wants to see the good in people so badly, it makes it easy. Matt. Yeah, well, lucky for us. You ready for Friday? Rachel. Already booked the room? Room 214. Same one he took me to on our anniversary. How poetic is that? She went dead silent. I handed her the envelope. Divorce papers. Signed by me. Everything's documented. Your texts, hotel visits, even the bank statements you thought I wouldn't notice. Matt tried to speak. Ethan, listen. I cut him off. Save it. You're the guy who texts me memes and asks for career advice. You're not just a cheater. You're a coward. Rachel's mouth opened and closed like she was searching for the right lie to soften the blow. But this wasn't a courtroom drama. There was no jury. Just facts. She reached for the papers. Her hands shook. Ethan, please. We can talk about this. I laughed. A cold, humorless sound. You don't want to talk. You wanted thrills. You wanted lies and secrets and hotel rooms. So here's your thrill. Your secret's out. You're free. And so am I. She looked at Matt, then back at me. You're throwing away our marriage because of one mistake? One? I scoffed. Rachel, I watched you fall in love with someone else in real time. You didn't cheat. You replaced me. The silence was deafening. And then, calmly, I took the small device out of my jacket and placed it on the table. Rachel narrowed her eyes. What is that? The GoPro, I said. It's been recording for 10 minutes, full audio and video, everything you said, every word out of Matt's mouth captured. She stepped forward fast, trying to grab it, but I was faster. It's already uploaded to a private cloud, and no, I don't plan to post it unless either of you tries to screw me in court. Try to make claims, lie to a judge, and the footage goes public. Otherwise, you walk away quietly and respectfully, sign the divorce, leave my house, and stay out of my life. Matt was ghost white now. Rachel was on the verge of tears. But I didn't feel bad. Not anymore. I loved you, I said quietly, but I won't fight for someone who wouldn't fight for me. And with that, I walked out. I didn't look back. Not even when Rachel called my name. Not even when Matt muttered, Jesus Christ, under his breath. Not even when the hotel clerk asked if everything was okay. Because it was. Everything was finally okay. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I drove out to my buddy Jordan's place. He lived about 40 minutes out of town, near the lake. We'd been friends since high school, and he always kept a spare room ready for emergencies, or in his words, when T hits the fan. The second he opened the door and saw the look on my face, he didn't ask questions. Just handed me a beer and motioned toward the couch. Guess she finally pushed the wrong button, huh? He said after a few minutes of silence. I nodded. I served her the divorce papers, right in the hotel suite she booked for her affair. Caught them both. His eyes lit up. You actually did it? Yeah, Matt was the guy. Jordan's expression dropped. Your coworker, Matt? Yep. He exhaled. Jesus, you need to torch your whole contacts list, man. We drank in silence for a while. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel sad. There was just this weird, hollow space in my chest, like I'd finally taken off a weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying for years. But the worst part? It wasn't just the betrayal. It was realizing how long I'd been living with someone who could lie that effortlessly. The next morning, I went to the office. I needed to get ahead of the fallout. Matt worked 2 floors above me in a different department, but word travels fast. I'd already looped in HR anonymously, sent them the GoPro recording, and a detailed breakdown of Rachel and Matt's affair timeline. Not because I wanted revenge, not directly, but because we worked in a consulting firm where conflicts of interest and ethical violations meant everything. Matt had been recommending our company's services to Rachel's agency, which meant he was doing side deals while sleeping with a client. By lunch, his name had been scrubbed from the Slack channels. By 3 p.m., he was escorted out of the building. I didn't even watch. That same evening, Rachel showed up at my front door. I knew she would. I was sitting in the living room, going through emails, when Milo barked at the sound of her car pulling up. She knocked, like she still lived there, like she hadn't burned the entire house down, metaphorically, just days ago. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. She was dressed down, no makeup, hair in a bun, eyes red. She looked real, human. "Ethan," she said softly, "can we talk?" "I think we already did," I replied. She swallowed. "Please? Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." I sighed and stepped aside. Let her walk into the living room one last time. She sat down slowly, like the room was fragile, or like she was. "I messed up," she started, "and I'm not going to insult you by denying it. I don't even know who I've been lately." "That's obvious," I said. She flinched, but didn't cry. "Not yet." "Ethan, I didn't start this to hurt you. It wasn't about that. I just felt like I was losing myself. Like our marriage became this routine. You're stable, you're kind, but I felt invisible." I let her talk. I owed her nothing, but I wanted to hear it. "And Matt?" I asked. "He was a mistake," she said instantly. "He listened. He made me feel seen, but it was never love. It was a mirror, a bad one." I scoffed. "You felt invisible because you stopped showing up. You shut me out, Rachel. You pulled away and then blamed me for not chasing you. What did you expect? That I'd keep guessing what you needed? I didn't expect you to track my car and set up surveillance," she said, voice rising. I leaned forward. "I didn't expect my wife to sleep with someone else in the same hotel I took her to on our anniversary. So I guess we're even on the unexpected front." She stood up. "I know I've lost your trust, and maybe I deserve that, but don't do this out of anger. Please. We can try counseling." I stood too, calm, steady. "There's no marriage to save, Rachel. You didn't just cheat. You mocked me. You built a second life behind my back. I don't hate you, but I'm done with you." She went still. Then her shoulders dropped. "You're really going to do this?" "I already did." She left without another word. That night, I slept better than I had in months. The following days were a blur. My lawyer filed the papers officially. Rachel didn't contest. Maybe she realized she didn't have a case. Maybe Matt's firing scared her straight. Either way, the silence was golden. But what happened next, I didn't see coming. Rachel's sister, Kara, called me. We'd always gotten along. She was younger, funnier, and brutally honest. We met for coffee. "I heard everything," she said. "Rachel's a mess. Our parents are pissed. Matt's ghosting her now that he's out of a job. She's unraveling." I shrugged. "Not my circus?" Kara gave me a look. "Look, I'm not here to defend her. What she did was disgusting. But I want you to know I never liked Matt. The dude gave off sleaze from the first time I met him. And Rachel, she always thought she was too good for boring stability. She didn't realize stability is the only thing that lasts." I appreciated the words, but I wasn't looking for sympathy. I was looking for peace. "You're gonna be okay, Ethan," Kara said before leaving. "Actually, no. You're gonna be better than okay. You're finally free of her bullsh asterisk teeth." I nodded. I knew she was right. The strange part was how quickly my life started filling up again. I picked up a new hobby, woodworking. I started going to the gym again. Milo and I took long drives. And then, about a month later, I got a call from a law firm representing Rachel's agency. Turns out, Matt had been doing more than sleeping with Rachel. He'd been siphoning consulting fees from our firm into fake vendor accounts he created under shell names. When Rachel vouched for him to land the contract, she unknowingly implicated herself. Now her agency was being investigated. And guess who had the digital trail leading back to everything? Yup, me. I didn't want to get involved, but the partner at the firm offered me a choice: cooperate and help the internal audit, or be subpoenaed if this turned into a federal case. So I gave them everything: emails, chat logs, contracts. Rachel wasn't just going through a divorce. She was now facing a possible job termination, reputation loss, and a lawsuit from her own employer. Actions have consequences. And karma's got perfect aim. I didn't think I'd feel anything when it all came crashing down on Rachel, but I did. Not joy, not revenge, something colder, detached pity. The HR investigator from her company called me personally. They'd completed the audit. Matt had been siphoning tens of thousands through bogus marketing vendors. Rachel had signed off on a few of the payments, not knowing they were fake, but still responsible as his main point of contact. Technically, she wasn't stealing, but professionally, she was done. She was placed on administrative leave while the board deliberated. They didn't even wait till the end of the week. By Friday afternoon, I got a message from Kara. She got fired. They wiped her system, told her she's being reported to the state board, and asked her to leave the building in front of everyone. It didn't feel like victory. It felt quiet, like a curtain finally falling after an ugly play. I hadn't seen or spoken to Rachel since the night she came by my house, but a week after her firing, she emailed me. Just one sentence. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm sorry. I didn't reply. Not because I hated her. I didn't. I just didn't owe her anything anymore. Forgiveness is something you give to free yourself. And I was already free. 3 months later, I was standing in my garage, hands dusty from carving a cedar bench I'd been working on for weeks. Milo lay in the corner, tail wagging lazily as music played low from a Bluetooth speaker. That's when Jordan dropped by. He had a grin on his face and 2 coffees in hand. You hear the latest? He asked. I raised an eyebrow. Matt's going bankrupt. Apparently, he was already swimming in debt and the fraud investigation froze a bunch of his accounts. His landlord kicked him out. Rumor is, he's sleeping on a friend's couch and applying for jobs at startups. No one's biting. I just shook my head. Jordan sipped his coffee. And Rachel? She moved back in with her parents. Kara told me she's thinking of starting a blog. He chuckled. A blog. After all that. I shrugged. People rebuild. Not always with their dignity intact, he said, walking over to admire the bench. You're different now, he added after a pause. You're more centered, like the version of you before you met her, but sharper. He wasn't wrong. It's strange how betrayal strips everything bare, but once you're past the rage, the humiliation, the ache, what's left is clean. Raw, yes, but honest. One day, I bumped into Kara again. She looked surprised to see me at the bookstore downtown. You look good, she said, giving me a quick hug. You too. We chatted for a bit. She asked if I was seeing anyone. I said no, I wasn't rushing it. She smiled. Well, just so you know, not all women are Rachel. I'm learning that. We exchanged numbers. No pressure, just a human connection, one not laced in lies. It wasn't long after that I finally finalized the divorce. Court was a breeze. Rachel didn't contest anything. I kept the house. The car, my business remained untouched. She got a small settlement, enough to move on, not enough to feel rewarded. As she walked out of the courthouse, we made brief eye contact. She looked smaller somehow, not in stature, but spirit. She nodded. I nodded back. That was it. No drama, no theatrics, just the end of a chapter that needed to end. 6 months passed. I rebuilt everything that mattered, not just my routines, but myself. I started volunteering on weekends, teaching coding to underprivileged kids, something Rachel always thought was a waste of time. But it made me feel like I was building again, not just projects, but people. One night, I got an email. Subject: You were right. From Matt. I stared at it for a while before opening it. You were right about me, about what I was. I don't expect you to respond. But I figured if I had the guts to screw everything up, I should at least have the guts to admit it. I burned every bridge. You were one of the few real people in my life, and I betrayed that. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I closed the laptop. Did I forgive him? I don't know, but I never opened another message from him again. Life has a way of course correcting if you let it. Now, a year later, I've met someone new. Her name's Alina. She's kind, hilarious, and fiercely honest. She saw my scars without trying to fix them. She just held space for them. One night, she asked me, "Do you still think about her?" Sometimes, I admitted. Not because I miss her, but because I learned more from that betrayal than I ever did from the comfort. Alina nodded. Then I hope she knows what she lost. She probably does, I said, but that's not my story anymore. She smiled, took my hand, and whispered, "Good, because I want to be part of the next one." They say karma takes its time, that justice sleeps. But here's the truth. Karma doesn't forget. It just waits for the perfect moment when you least expect it to write the ending you never saw coming. And sometimes, you don't need revenge. You just need to live better than the people who tried to break you. And I did. I really, really did. Update. 1 month later. It had been 31 days since I walked out of that courtroom with my freedom intact and my past finally behind me. At least that's what I kept telling myself. But healing isn't a straight line. Some days were bright, peaceful. I'd wake up early, take Milo for a walk, drink my coffee on the porch in silence, and feel like I was finally becoming someone I could be proud of. Other days, they came in waves. Not sadness for Rachel, not longing, just echoes. Little flashes of what used to be. The smell of her shampoo lingering in a towel I hadn't thrown out yet. A random playlist I forgot she made still popping up in my Spotify queue, but I didn't let those things drag me down. Because I had something now that I hadn't had in years. Clarity. That month, I focused entirely on rebuilding not just myself, but the life I'd neglected during the final 2 years of my marriage. I turned the spare room into a home office and launched my own tech consulting brand. No more middlemen, no more thankless late nights doing grunt work for people like Matt. Clients were coming in steadily, referrals from past connections who respected me long before my personal life made headlines in our little corporate circle. And then there was Alina. She hadn't just appeared from nowhere. We met once, briefly, during a tech workshop about 6 months before the whole Rachel Matt debacle. She had been a guest speaker, sharing insights on digital minimalism and UX design. I remember thinking she was sharp and articulate, the kind of person who didn't just speak to be heard, but to make you feel something. We reconnected at a coffee shop, total accident, or fate, whatever you believe in. She saw me standing in line and her expression flickered recognition, then curiosity, then a genuine smile. Ethan? She asked, holding a reusable coffee mug. You were at that March workshop, right? Minimal UI, big crowd, bad coffee? I laughed. Yeah, I remember you blew everyone away with the white space rant. She smirked. I stand by that rant. We sat and talked for an hour, then 2. It felt effortless, not forced, not flirtatious in that desperate way. Just 2 people finally finding each other in a moment that made sense. We started seeing each other weekly. No labels, no pressure. She respected my boundaries and I respected her honesty. She asked about Rachel once. I told her the basics, not for drama, but for transparency. She didn't press for details. She just said, that must have been heavy, and moved on. And that's how I knew she was different. About 2 weeks into this new rhythm, I got a text from Kara. You might want to sit down before you read this. Attached was a blurry photo. Rachel, in a grocery store parking lot, yelling at Matt. I stared at it for a long minute. What is this? I replied. They're back at it, or were. Apparently, she caught him trying to sell some of her old stuff online. Expensive clothes, perfumes, jewelry things she left at his place. She showed up unannounced and lost it. Why are you sending me this? Because she's spiraling, and I know she won't tell you, but she's about to lose the apartment her parents helped her lease. She hasn't found steady work. Her name's mud in the agency world. She's running out of options. I didn't know what to say. I just stared at the screen. I'm not telling you so you'll pity her. Kara followed up. I'm telling you because I think you deserve to know how lucky you were to walk away when you did. I didn't reply, not because I disagreed, but because I knew she was right. A few days later, I ran into Matt. Yeah, Matt. It was at a tech meetup. He was sitting alone at the back in the corner, scrolling through his phone like it owed him something. I didn't recognize him at first. He'd lost weight, had darker circles under his eyes, and looked like he hadn't had a good night's sleep in months. He saw me and instantly froze, like a raccoon caught in someone's trash pile at 3 a.m. I wasn't planning on speaking to him, but he walked over anyway. Ethan, he said, voice low. Do you mind if I say something? I shrugged. That depends. Is it something new? He gave a weak chuckle. Fair, I know saying sorry doesn't fix anything, and I don't expect forgiveness. But I want you to know I haven't stopped thinking about how I wrecked everything. You were one of the good ones, man. Still are. I looked him dead in the eye. You didn't wreck everything. You just exposed what was already cracked. Thanks for the final push. He nodded slowly, then turned and walked away. That was it. No apology that needed to be accepted. No handshake. Just closure. By the end of the month, something strange happened. I received a letter, handwritten, from Rachel. No return address. It said, Ethan, I know you won't answer my emails or calls, and I respect that. I'm writing this because I'm out of people to lie to, including myself. I'm not asking for you to respond. I ruined the best thing I ever had, and I know now it wasn't because you were boring. It was because you were safe, and I didn't know how to appreciate that. Everything since has been falling apart, and honestly, I think I deserve it. You always said truth matters more than comfort, so here's mine. I was selfish, I was weak, and I don't expect redemption. I just hope you found something better. You were never the problem. I was just too blind to see I already had everything. Or, I burned the letter, not out of hate, but because I didn't need it. Words weren't going to rebuild what she tore down, and I was done carrying ashes. A week later, Alina and I took a trip to the coast. Nothing fancy, just a weekend escape to the kind of quiet place where time slows down and you can hear your own breath. On our last night there, we were sitting on the sand, watching the sky shift into 1,000 shades of orange. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "You seem lighter," she whispered. "I am," I said. "I think I finally let go of everything I was holding on to." She smiled. "Good, because I think life's just starting for you." Maybe she's right. Because life doesn't end after betrayal. It begins the moment you stop bleeding for people who never deserved your heart in the first place. Update 2. The thing about closure is, you think it's a moment. A scream, a slam, a signature. But sometimes it's the silence that comes after. The silence that tells you, finally, it's over. After the fallout of everything, catching her in the act, serving her the divorce papers, taking the house, going no contact, it wasn't like my mind suddenly became peaceful. Nah, that's not how healing works. There were days I still woke up and reached for her side of the bed. Mornings when I'd hear a song and for a split second forget she ever tore our life apart. But I was healing. Quietly, stubbornly, day by day. Until I got the message. 1 month later. I had just returned from a trail hike. There's a forest park near where I moved. Clean air, no one knows me, and the silence is kind. I was sweaty, relaxed, and for once my mind wasn't screaming with the echoes of betrayal. That's when I saw the email. Subject: please, just one conversation. From Marissa. I stared at it for a long while. Part of me didn't want to open it. What could she possibly say that hadn't already been burned to ash in that hotel room? But curiosity isn't kind. It's a slow itch behind the eyes. So I opened it. "I don't expect you to forgive me. Honestly, I wouldn't if I were you, but I need you to know I'm sorry. Really sorry. For everything I did to you. For the lies. For what I turned our marriage into. And if you never speak to me again, I'll understand. But please, just give me 10 minutes. One conversation. No expectations." I sat there rereading that line. One conversation, over and over. Why now? She already got embarrassed, caught, exposed in front of her affair partner. She knew I had nothing left to give her. No money, no attention, no care. Yet she was reaching out. Maybe guilt, maybe loneliness, maybe selfishness again. But still. I replied, "One conversation, public place. You choose, I'll give you 15 minutes, that's all." The final confrontation. She picked a small cafe in Midtown. Outdoors, quiet, and ironically, one of the first places we had coffee when we were dating. Nostalgia must have been her angle. I showed up early, ordered black coffee, no sugar, and sat facing the parking lot. She arrived late, of course. Her face had changed, not visibly, but energetically. No fake smile, no flirty flick of her hair, just a woman who looked like the weight of her world was pressing on her bones. "Hey," she said softly. I nodded. 15 minutes. Marissa didn't even argue. She just sat down, folded her hands, and for a few seconds just stared at them like she didn't know where to begin. "I messed up," she finally said. "No shit," I muttered. "I know you don't want excuses, I wouldn't either. But I need you to know it wasn't about you. It never was. You were, honestly, the best man I've ever had in my life. The only one who really saw me. Which made me terrified." I raised a brow. "Terrified enough to lie? Cheat? Let me plan our anniversary while you were screwing a guy in a hotel?" Her eyes welled up. "Yes, because I'm broken." I scoffed. She reached into her purse slowly and pulled out a notebook. Old, worn, familiar. My journal. "You left this in the storage box." It was a journal I'd started during the early days of our marriage, a mix of thoughts, dreams, little things I loved about her, before the rot set in. I thought I tossed it, but maybe it ended up in the pile I left behind. "I read it," she admitted, her voice cracking. You loved me more than I ever deserved." "You're right," I said, standing up. "Wait," she pleaded. "I'm in therapy. I'm trying. I pushed you away because I thought I wasn't enough for someone like you. And I proved myself right by ruining everything. But I want to be better now. Not for you. For me." I paused, looking down at her, the woman who once twisted my world inside out. And now she looked like a cracked shell of who she used to be. But I felt nothing. "You want a trophy for fixing the damage you caused?" I asked. She shook her head. "No. I didn't want the last words between us to be hate. I wanted you to know that I do regret it. Every day." I nodded. "Now you've said your piece. Goodbye, Marissa." And I walked away. She didn't follow. She didn't shout. She just sat there, hands still folded. Life after the storm. That was the last time I saw her. She never contacted me again after that day. Maybe she finally understood that some things can't be patched up. Some ruins aren't worth rebuilding. I poured myself into rebuilding my life instead. The business? Doing better than ever. Turns out that when you're not distracted by constant emotional damage control, your mind gets clearer. I moved to a smaller city, not far from the coast, got a place near the beach, started running again. I signed up for a photography class just for fun. I even got a rescue dog, a golden retriever named Bear, who snores louder than a freight train and insists on sleeping on my feet. Friends kept their distance at first, unsure of what to say, but I let them in. Slowly, my buddy Mike invited me on a group hiking trip, and I actually said yes. Healing wasn't a straight road. There were still potholes. Some days I remembered the sound of her laugh, the way her perfume lingered on jackets I hadn't worn since before the fallout. But the difference was, it didn't hurt anymore. The unexpected letter. 6 months later, I received a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a small envelope. My name, written in familiar handwriting. I opened it cautiously. You were my greatest blessing, and I didn't know how to hold on to it. I hope life gives you everything I took away. And more. And I folded it. Didn't cry. Didn't burn it. I just placed it in the back of my drawer and went outside. Bear wagged his tail, waiting with his leash in his mouth. We went for a walk by the ocean. The sunset stretched like fire across the water. I felt the wind against my face, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a man who had lost something. I felt like a man who had survived. Epilogue. If you're going through it, if you're reading this and you're in the thick of it, if your world's cracking beneath your feet because someone you loved shattered your trust, listen, you will survive this. It may not feel like it today or tomorrow, but slowly and surely you'll rebuild. Not the life you had, but the life you deserve. One where you are whole. One where your peace is louder than the betrayal ever was. And maybe one day you'll sit on a beach like I did, with the wind in your hair and a dog snoring at your feet, and you'll realize you didn't just survive. You won. The end.